So I'm wearing the brand new Apple Watch Series 7, and on my other wrist, I'm wearing last year's Apple Watch Series 6, but I would bet at first glance, you probably can't tell which one's which. That's because Apple recycled a lot of the designs from last year's Apple Watch Series 6, but although it looks really similar, that doesn't mean it's insignificant. In fact, it's kind of just the opposite. The changes Apple did make were really all the right changes. Any complaints we had about last year's Series 6 are, for the most part, fixed in the Series 7. And although they are small incremental changes across the board, it overall gives you a much better experience. So in this video, I'm going to dive into that and see what the changes are and kind of answer two questions. One of them being, if you have a Series 6, is it worth it to upgrade? And the second one being, if you don't have a Series 6, maybe you have a Series 3 or something like that, or maybe you just don't have an Apple Watch at all, and you're looking to buy one, the question is, which one would you buy? The Series 6 or the Series 7? Or this is the 6 and this is the 7 actually. When you look at them closer, you can actually see that there are some pretty substantial differences. But I first want to talk about why they kind of recycled the design. We know that there were a lot of renders and rumors about having a boxier design for the Apple Watch Series 7 that would maybe look more like the iPhones and the iPads. But instead, we have the same round design that we saw last year with some subtle changes to the overall geometry. And the reason, I think, are really twofold. The first one is that we know there have been a lot of supply chain issues, and I'll talk about some of the indicators we really see in this that point to potential supply chain issues. And the second reason would be, the Apple Watch Series 6 was a pretty fantastic watch. It already crushed a lot of the competition in a lot of categories, and if it's a watch that was so popular and people really liked it, maybe Apple felt like they didn't actually have to change that much, and an incremental improvement would really be what they needed. So starting off with some of the design changes, the first one that is obviously very not significant at all is that it is only 1 millimeter larger. So the overall body is almost exactly the same, but 44 millimeters last year is now 45 millimeters. And although it is just 1 millimeter larger, it actually packs a substantially larger screen. So the display on here is 20% larger than last year's Series 6, and looking at them side by side, it looks like even more than 20% improvement. Realistically, I think that there are so many benefits to having a larger display, obviously from the functionality of it, so buttons are bigger, text is bigger, everything's bigger on here and more readable. If you're going on a run, obviously you can see things at a glance. There are a lot of benefits, and I'll talk more about those later on in the video, but the other benefits to that are also aesthetically. The lack of a giant bezel all the way around there allows you to have a smaller watch that displays as much as it really needs to. So in the past, anyone who felt the need to buy a 44 millimeter version might actually be fine with the smaller version now because the display is just so much larger. In fact, the display on the smaller model for the 7 is still way larger than the larger screen on the older Apple Watches from a while ago. And just as a side note, Apple just announced their AirPods 3 today, so I will be reviewing those in the near future. If you want to see that, definitely go down and click that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss that video. The display is also brighter, but not in the way you think. What I mean by this is you're actually improving the always-on display. And so the always-on display is a great way to see the time when you're not looking at it, or to just not have a black rectangle on your wrist when anybody else is looking at, your style. So it's going to help twofold there. Like I said, when you just glance at your wrist to see the time, the always-on display is brighter, more readable, and when anybody else looks at you for whatever reason, if they're just looking at your style, you now have, a more emphasized style on your watch rather than just that black rectangle. So that's an improvement there. But back to other improvements with the design, the really big one here. So better display, right? That's a big improvement over last year, but also better durability. And being that these watches are pretty expensive, honestly, having better durability gives you more peace of mind and makes it more worth it to buy the watch in the first place. So there's really two things they did here. One of them is that they finally gave it IP6X water or dust resistance rather. So the IP rating is just a system to judge essentially how much dust and water resistance you have. It's already been water resistant, but now they added dust resistance. It's nice that they finally tested for that. And the second thing is actually the better crack resistant. So now it is more durable with a 50% thicker crystal display. It's also a little bit different geometry on the underside of that display, so you can't see it, but it's more flat versus what it was last year. And so the combination of the geometry and the thickness of this gives you a much more robust and much more crack resistant display on your watch. So massive improvement to the display, improvement to durability. What other complaints do we have about the Series 6? Well, one of the big ones was definitely the battery life. Lasting about a day and a half under normal use, it was definitely nothing special. And now on the Series 7, well, it's kind of the same. same battery life on here, still targeting about 18 hours, but Apple did still improve the experience. So even though you're not getting a longer battery life, what you are getting now is a faster charging experience. So with the charger that's included in the box, nice to have, it's actually a substantially faster charger here, and I found that the fast charger actually helps quite a bit. So I end up wearing this watch pretty much all the time, all night while I'm sleeping, during the day, and maybe I'll take it off like when I shower, when I make breakfast, and being able to just quickly charge up in the morning gives you a full day of battery, and you never have to feel like you're missing out on using this watch. In the old devices, you kind of would have to take it off while you're sleeping, or else you'd miss a couple hours during the day while it's charging. But this one, charging faster, definitely makes a big difference. And on top of that, I mentioned that this charger comes in the box with the 7. It technically also works on the Series 6 and older devices as well, but it doesn't charge them faster. And similarly, the Series 7 charges on older chargers, but doesn't charge faster with them either. So the only way to get fast charging is with the new charger and the new watch. And you can tell which one is the new charger because it has USB Type-C on one end, and it has an aluminum casing on the other. I do, however, have a complaint with the charging. Apple wanted to improve the charging on this, so they made a faster charger, but what they still didn't do was give you the ability to charge on the back of your phone. So, for example, the iPhone 13 Pro, we are pretty confident you're able to charge things with this as you are with the MagSafe battery pack, but for some reason, they don't allow us to charge up our watch. And being that you only have about a 1.5 day battery life, if I'm traveling and I have to bring an iPhone cable and an Apple Watch cable, like, it's just more annoying to have to remember all of that stuff. I would much rather be able to go on like a weekend trip and just charge my watch up on the back of my phone. So that's a small complaint there. I wish Apple would have changed that. Like, Apple, please just let us charge our watch like Samsung does and other brands do as well. Like, it would be really nice. So enough about the charger. We improved the charger, the display, and the durability. That's all great, but there are some other subtle differences that I noticed when using this watch that either tie into the larger display or they tie into the software improvements, and kind of they go hand in hand there. So starting off with the display, the first one that Apple really pushed that they were really excited about was 2 proprietary watch faces on here, or 2 really special ones that are only available on the 7. And so these watch faces, although they are fun to have on here, I don't really see exactly why they can't add them to the Series 6. So the 2 faces are this. The first one, as you can see right here, gives you numbers all the way around the display, and if you move the crown, it'll kind of make the numbers, change size and stuff, and it's fun to have, but it definitely could also fit on the Series 6, right? The only difference is that this one, you can technically see the numbers from the edge of the watch. It's really hard to capture that on camera, but just take my word for it, you can see it from the edge. But obviously that's just one watch face, and I don't even use that most of the time. The other one gives you a ton of data. If you're somebody who loves a lot of numbers and analytics, then it's going to be a fantastic watch face for you. And again, it's something that feels like maybe they could have still added this to last year's Series 6. So if you really think about it, it's pretty interesting. They're talking about this bigger display means that you can have a better watch face with more information on there, but it's also available on the smaller Series 7, which is still a smaller display than last year's larger Series 6. And I think that's kind of interesting. It kind of feels like something Samsung did a couple years ago where they wanted to make the watch feel different. The Watch Active 2, they were trying to give you as much that's different about it as possible, and the watch faces were one of them. And for some reason, they had watch faces that you couldn't get on other watches. And I think that's kind of what Apple's doing here because they realize it's a very similar design. And so giving these, granted very nice and fun watch faces only to the Series 7, it kind of feels like just another way they can justify the difference. So the waterfall display, as you can see on that watch face there, is kind of fun to have, but I don't think it's really fully capitalized upon. And so what I mean by that is, well, first of all, it's not touch sensitive, so you don't have to worry about accidental touches, but you also can't use it for anything like that. But second of all, the waterfall display, it kind of looks good on that watch face for sure, but other than that watch face, I'm not sure what else would really use it. Maybe eventually you'll have some third-party complications or apps out there that can really do a lot more with that, but at least for now, it doesn't really look like it does much. Like some watch faces use it, but most don't. Of course, with a new design iteration of a watch, you're also getting new colors. And so with the Apple Watch Series 7, you're getting 5 new aluminum colors. I guess depending on what colors you like, it's either an improvement or a downgrade, but there's more colors on here. Now, other than that, a lot of the differences are really going to be mostly software. I mentioned the watch faces, of course, but you also have a Qwerty keyboard, like a full keyboard on here for swipe texting and for, things of that nature, which is very convenient, allows you to communicate more quickly. And otherwise, there's really not a whole lot of major differences with the Series 7. A lot of other stuff is showing up on watchOS 8, which is rolling back to the Series 6 as well. And this is where I really want to talk a little bit more about what I noticed that kind of points to supply chain issues. So for most generations of the Apple Watch, we're getting a new chip on there, a new processor. And granted, it is very fast on the Series 6. You're getting the S6 processor, but on the Series 7, you're also still getting the same S6 processor. So you should essentially be getting, theoretically, the same speed on both these watches, which is very fast and it works very well, but it kind of indicates that there might have been some type of supply chain issues that made Apple a little bit more restricted into how they designed this watch. But of course, that is not necessarily a bad thing. Having a lot of streamlined stuff like the same processor, the same ECG, the same blood oxygen, like a lot of things like that, means that you are able to get more out of this watch for not a substantially higher price. In fact, it's opening at the same price that we saw last year with the Series 6, despite having a larger display and some other nice improvements on here. But of course, watchOS 8 comes with a lot of really cool things, like fall detection when you're biking, or the ability to detect an e-bike versus a regular bike. Personally, I haven't tested that out because, well, honestly, I don't own an e-bike, but otherwise, like, there's a lot of cool things on there. And that's been it. That's the Apple Watch Series 7, incremental improvements, but overall a substantially better experience with better durability, better display, better charging, and some other really cool things that you're able to use with that larger display on there. But overall, is it worth it to upgrade if you have the Series 6? Definitely not. Just keep the Series 6, wait for the Series 8, and if supply chain cleans up, hopefully we see a much different design there. But otherwise, if you have any other device and you're looking to buy a brand new Apple Watch, then the Series 7 is definitely a good buy. But it also kind of leads the question of, is it better than the Apple Watch SE? I know last year I said the Apple Watch SE, for most people, was a better buy than the Series 6, but this year, the Series 7 with the bigger display has a pretty hard argument to go against. So maybe in the future, I will make a comparison between the Apple Watch SE and the Series 7. Leave a comment if you want to see that. Otherwise, like I said, I will be comparing this to tons of other devices, Android watches, other Apple devices, like things like that. So definitely don't forget to subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, like and leave a comment below. I'm Mike O'Brien. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.